Hello again. Welcome to my Calculus Conundrums Finding Derivatives. This is my second video. The first video, you remember, was covering the definition of the derivative. This one is going to give you your first rule for finding derivatives. Now, I'm not going to prove these rules because I'm just going to give them to you. Your instructor might make you prove them, especially if you're in Cal 1. You might have to prove some of these rules. But business calculus students usually can bypass that. Okay, so now the first rule I'm going to show you is called the simple power rule. The reason we call it the simple power rule is because there's another rule that comes later that's called the general power rule. But the simple power rule is just if you want to take the derivative of some independent variable that's raised to a power with respect to itself. So the derivative of x to the n with respect to x can be written as n times x to the n minus 1. So all you do to find the derivative here is simply bring the n down and then write n times x to the n minus 1. And this is actually a special case of this rule, but I'll let you can show this using this rule. Just remember that x is actually thought of as x to the first power. So when you apply the rule, you'll get 1 times x to the 0 power, which of course is 1. But it's helpful to know this, that the derivative of x is 1. That way you don't have to apply the power rule each time. Now I'm going to start you with a simple one, x to a integer power. So here we have x to the 7th, and if we want to find the derivative of that, then we just bring the 7 down in front of the x, so we have 7 times x to a new power, and the new power would be, we take the original power 7, subtract 1, and then we get 7 times x to the 6th power. And that's as simple as it gets, thus the simple power rule. Now, what you might have to do in some situations is you might have to convert your function to a function that's where it has x raised to a power before you can apply this rule. So in other words, you might have to rewrite the function. So here we're going to rewrite this function. I have the 5th root of x squared. And so you can review this if you need to on how to convert radicals to rational exponents. But all you would do here is you would just rewrite this as x to the 2/5 power, and I'm going to assume everybody knows how to do that. Then we're going to take the derivative of x to the 2/5 power using this power rule. So to take the derivative of that, I would bring the power in front of the x, and then I would reduce the power of x by 1, so I'd take 2/5 minus 1. And that would give me negative 3/5. So I'd have 2/5 times x to the negative 3/5. Now generally we ask our students not to leave the answer with a negative exponent. So remember, x to the negative 3/5, you can move that to the denominator and change it to x to the positive 3/5. So our final answer would be, the derivative would be 2 divided by 5x to the positive 3/5. And here's one more. I wanted to show you one where you have a negative exponent. So here we have 1 over the cube root of x squared. So this might be what you're given. And then you have to convert this to x to some power. So 1 over the cube root of x squared can be written as 1 over x to the 2/3 power. But that still doesn't give us x to a power. So we have to take it one more step and write it as x to the negative 2/3. Now, I haven't taken the derivative yet. This is just rewriting the function, so make sure you realize that. Now I'm going to apply this power rule, and so I'll bring the negative 2/3 in front of the x, so I'll have negative 2/3 times x raised to the negative 2/3 minus 1. Now negative 2/3 minus 1 is x to the, that would be negative 5/3. So my final answer is negative 2/3 times x to the negative 5/3, and then the derivative of that could be written as negative 2 over 3x to the 5/3, and you would get a positive 5/3 by moving x to the negative 5/3 to the denominator. So that would be your derivative. And that's really all I've got to show you on this rule. But I thought what I would do, you might remember when I found the derivative by the definition, I did the square root of x. And let me just show you how real easy it is to use this formula to find the derivative of square root of x, as opposed to using the definition that I used earlier to find the derivative. Alright, let's finish this up by using the simple power rule to find the derivative of square root of x. So first of all, square root of x can be written as x to the 1/2. So let's write it as x to the 1/2. Now let's apply the power rule. So to apply the power rule to this, we would bring the 1/2 down. So we'd have 1/2 times x to the 1/2 minus 1. And then 1/2 minus 1 would be negative 1/2. So I'd have 1/2 x to the negative 1/2. Now I can move the x to the negative 1/2 into the denominator and make it x to the positive 1/2. So I have 1 over 2 x to the positive 1/2. Now x to the 1/2 is the same as square root of x, so you could just write that as 1 over 2 times the square root of x. Now see how quick that was? And now compare it to what we did up here on using the definition of the derivative, and notice we got the same answer, 1 over 2 square root of x, but obviously this took a much longer time to find the derivative rather than when I used the simple power rule. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to talk about, in the next video, I'm going to talk about some more properties that we can use to find derivatives, but again, feel free to subscribe to my channel so that you can see these videos. Good day.